Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show today. Glad you are here. As you can see, I am wearing my New York Mets ball cap in honor of the Mets winning their series. They now face the LA Dodgers, and I'm a bit torn because having been growing up in LA, I got a great affinity for, love the Dodgers as well. So, um, yeah. So we're asking, why am I a Mets fan? Well, when I was growing up, the Mets were one of the stronger teams in the late 70s, 80s. And yeah, I became a fan of them. They're just a very good team, and I liked them. And nowadays, because I work in New York, uh, it just makes it even easier to follow and be a fan. So, but of course, now we got the Dodgers playing, which is my childhood team. So yeah, a little bit conflicted. So actually, for me, um, wish best for both teams, and if whoever comes out on top next week, you'll be seeing that hat. It'll be a Mets, or it's going to be a Dodgers hat. so, we're going to continue today with our talk on General Stonewall Jackson. This will be our second and last talk on him. We're going to focus on the Valley Campaign, which was pretty much his next battle that he conducted as a general after the Battle of Manassas, the Battle of Bull Run. And I want to talk about this because it kind of really sets the stage for me. It kind of sets the stage of a couple things that I wanted to point out about him as a general and as a person. As we know from our last podcast, Jackson was an extremely God-fearing man. He was a Presbyterian. He was a deacon. He really, as a Christian, really was serious about it. So, I think that him being in the war as a general uh, was, to me, kind of hard. I would say that, kind of being as devout as he was, but in any case, he was a general, and the reason I wanted to talk to him about him first, because although Grant was along the same mindset as a general, I think in the East, Jackson was really the first one to know what this is total war. This is not. We're not here to just parade around. He knew what was happening, and he also realized what he'd have to do in order to win against a superior, numerically, weaponry, everything that the North had was superior to what he was given. So he really did know what this was real war, and it was something that only the other general in Union was Grant, Ulysses S. Grant, who really understood what it's going to take. And then to a next degree was General Sherman. We're going to be actually next podcast. We're going to review William Sherman. I got to tell you this. Sorry to go off topic here a little bit, but Sherman's before the war, his life was very, very interesting. So we're going to spend some time pre-war on William Sherman. So, but getting back to Stonewall Jackson. So we wanted to pick up, and we're going to look at a map here in a minute, but one of the things that Jackson did, which other generals did, was he marched his infantry uh, really, really hard, maybe over hard. In fact, present day they called it was like cavalry infantry, right? And the way they moved, it was just like the men. They marched a total of 650 miles between the Battle of Bull Run and the Valley Campaign. 650, imagine that. I'm a runner and I love running, and you know, I each year I try to go for 1,000, and that's all that I can do. And this is over a year, right? So you imagine, 20, 30 miles a day. He's marching these men, and they had not the greatest rations, right? They were tired. They were outdoors. They were wet. They were cold. I mean, they didn't have good shoes. I mean, it was hard. I don't think we really can appreciate just how hard it was. And then, of course, the living conditions that the men were under were just atrocious. disease and just filth, and it was just bad. And yet, doing what they did was quite incredible. Um, and the people that were, after him, just before we get to the map, were, you know, I'm not going to. I feel that a lot of people didn't get the sense yet of what this war meant, of what it was going to take to win, and I think that's why we had generals like Banks and Shields at the beginning, or and McClellan, who were just were like plodding along, prodding and just prodding along, no sense of urgency. Whereas Stonewall Jackson there was a sense of urgency, and that's why he would disappear, and then all of a sudden, boof, appear somewhere unexpected, because and from like 30, 40 miles away, and poof, there he reappears. And this was what really gave his legend really started to grow because of this, and it also alerted the North, is to this is a dangerous fella. This is somebody we can't just overlook. Lincoln knew it, and so did McClellan and the others. All right, so let's pull up the map. All right, so when we look at the Valley Campaign, it starts here in Kernstown, and we talked about this last podcast. This is where um, Jackson had a high ground, and the Union was over here, also on some high ground, Banks and Shields, and there was a back and forth, just back and forth, kind of a stalemate. With this battle, Union had a lot more forces than Jackson was informed that they had. In fact, that was part of the reason Jackson went and tried to battle here. He thought, oh, these guys don't have a whole lot. Unfortunately, he was basically told wrong information. So anyway, the battle was going on, and Jackson actually wanted to wait till nightfall and then retreat. But one of his generals called it was out of ammo, and he called a retreat. You know, Nowadays people say that that was the right decision that the other general made under Stonewall Jackson, but Jackson himself was pretty pissed about it. So anyway, Jackson retreats, and he retreats south, and he comes down here. He's passing up these mountains here. This is the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. D.C. is right here. Richmond's down here. We have the Blue Ridge Mountains. We have these mountains here. Allegheny Mountains are right here. And by the way, Shenandoah Valley is absolutely beautiful. If you ever get a chance to see it, like coming like off of the Appalachian Mountains and get to see the valley, it's just incredible views. I'd highly recommend going to take a look, especially if you're going to DC. So he retreats south. Banks, who is the other general under Shields, is told to chase him, right? And but Banks has a lot of problems. It's muck, um, and so his delay. He's back now. Banks also thought that what Jackson was going to do is he was going to get around the mountains here, and then he was going to cut across this pass to go and support Richmond. Is what Banks thought. So Banks said, "Well, heck, why should I follow? Maybe I should." What he wanted to do was he wanted to turn around and get back to D.C. And he wanted to join the main army that was coming down to surround and invade Richmond. Now, but that was not Jackson's plan. Jackson actually turned and came here to Stoughton, where uh, he circled around. This is where all this movement is, and he started to come back up. He grabbed some reinforcements. Again, the details. We're not really looking at so much as we want to kind of get the big picture here. He got reinforcements. He started to move back. Banks, by the way, was in here, and he had Fort Royal. So now one of the reinforcements came up, General Ewell, and he attacked the Fort Royal and won. So the Confederacy won here. Banks then retreats back to Winchester with all of his troops, and Jackson was hot in pursuit. And in fact, Banks got there pretty much like early evening. I was last trains and carts and everything pulled into Winchester, um, and Jackson was like only a couple hours behind. Now, the next day there was the battle, and Banks lost, and so Banks had to, uh, and Banks started to retreat. Now, I wanted to tell this because this this first of all, this draw, or actually this was a Union win at Kernstown. It was a Union win. But what happened in D.C. was that Lincoln and all of the senior generals realized that Jackson was a bigger threat than they initially thought. They also overguessed his size of his army, and so this was a win in the event that he gained notice. Now, as he withdraws south, like we're doing that retreat, right? They all thought, okay, he's coming here, no worries. But he turns it around and comes back again, surprised. Now, um, Lincoln in D.C. is like, okay, we got to take care of this guy, and he sends two generals, General Fremont, and they go and they try to block Jackson from retreating, and Jackson won again. And so these wins in this valley by Jackson actually, the McClellan's plans to invade Richmond are now, put on hold because they had to deal with this threat. And that was the major contribution, in my opinion, that Jackson did, was that he drew attention away from Richmond and into this valley here. And he did it basically single-handedly. He didn't really have, I mean, he had support of others, don't get me wrong, but I mean, this was him. And he was such a great general with moving his troops around that he got the attention of all the leaders, of the Union leaders. All right, so that'll do it for this podcast. I hope you enjoyed these two podcasts on General Stonewall Jackson. Uh, to sum up, after some other campaigns working with Robert E. Lee, Jackson was shot by friendly fire. He was coming back to camp, and the guards, you know, they didn't wait for a password, and unfortunately, he was shot, and he ended up dying. They had to amputate his arm, and he died. Now, uh, when they pulled out the bullet that killed him, it was a 67 caliber, which was what the Confederacy was using. Union was using 58, I think. But this was like the first instance of forensics being used to identify who shot. So Jackson died from friendly fire, but yeah, his legacy lives on. His two grandchildren served in the U.S. military, uh, and a lot of generals read him in the tactics that he did. So, all right, next podcast we are going to now look at a Union general. We're going to look at William Sherman, and we're going to talk about his middle name. We're going to talk about his birth. We're going to talk about growing up, and there's some really fascinating things he did before, pre-Civil War, which I think you're going to really enjoy hearing about. So, all right, until then, thanks so much.